Well, first of all, um, and I'm not going to, obviously, we've changed our policies, but I just tell you that even though you're having issues, I'm elated to hear that your son is doing well, because I absolutely remember the hellishness it was to try to work with your school to try to get your son where he needed to be in the services that he needed. So, yeah, and I mean, I know that I have a weird sort of law of averages or consideration on how special education issues cycle. But I mean, I'm just going by my own personal experience and what I've seen other parents go through. And usually you get a couple good years, and then you have issues again. And the entire goal is to not have the issues be bigger than they were the first time. And, as a parent gains more knowledge of the process and advocacy, then at that point, you're able to sit there and maintain a continuity to where, life is a cycle between chaos and order. All right. And there's nothing you can do about it. Everybody's life is constantly cycling where you have low periods and where you have good times. Constantly cycling in between. And what you want to do is you want to maintain a trajectory in the middle to where when you, as a normal human being, ends up dipping into the chaos and the negative, that you're just dipping and then coming back out again. And you want to cycle in between. You don't want to go deep diving into chaos or deep diving into this either. That's just not how life. The perfect is right in the middle, bouncing in between. And you can sit there and you can control your life. And I'm talking as an advocate, I'm talking about as a parent, I'm talking as a human being. If you sit there and you recognize that you will always be cycling in between two, and you just got to keep your eyes open. That way you're never shocked when you touch the water on the chaos side. And you can sit there and go, okay, it was my time. And then because you're gaining more knowledge and you're gaining more skills as your child's advocate, then you shouldn't be deep diving. But if you can control your emotion and you can control the focus, then you can skim that water and get yourself back out in the middle ground. And so I appreciate how you worded this. The thing that irritates me is obviously, an officer of the school, coming over the house blaming your child. Yeah, that blaming your child for their responsibility when your child has an IEP and your child has a diagnosis and your child's 8 years old. I mean, that's just ridiculous. It's stupid. But there's so many of these people that they want to protect the institution at all costs, meaning their employer, meaning this dead institution of brick and mortar known as a school or known as a police office or known as a government building. They will die for that building instead of realizing that it's no different than anything else. Nobody's perfect. And there's going to be mistakes. In your situation, I mean, nothing happened to him, thank God. But to sit there and say that everything is going to be perfect and somebody isn't going to mess up and there's not going to be confusion. I mean, I would be lying if I said that I have not. There haven't been times when my daughter has escaped from our house. Scared the hell out of us. Took us some time to find her a couple of times over the years. But anybody that is a parent of a child with autism, for example, that is an eloper and has a limited ability to communicate, you know what I'm talking about because it's happened to you. I mean, I have to lock my house up like Fort Knox now. I mean, she's 16, but at the same time, is she going to tell me where she's going? No. She just goes. Whatever she gets in her mind, that's just what I'm doing. And so, we have to protect her. And that's how we protect her. And, she's very trustworthy, but once we sort of understand what it is or where she wants to go. But it's the whole thing, I joke with my wife, that she's driver's license age and we're teaching her to drive a golf cart or teaching her to ride a bike. You got to be kidding me. I mean, she can ride a bike, but I'm just saying, you think for a second that I would ever have her learn how to, no, because we'd never find her. I mean, she would just, until she ran out of gas, she'd just be driving. And that is the most terrifying thought. And even though I'm smiling about it, because I know my daughter and love her to death. But that, I'm glad that you understand. And if it was a one-time thing, then that's where I would just sort of establish or reestablish the parameters of handoff. And then add that into your child's IEP, that your child as a goal or as a service, needs to work on self-regulation and needs to work on independence and needs to work on, these are skills that your child naturally is not going to have. And it's an educational performance area in the realm of social emotional development. And so they can service him in this area. And so servicing him in that area would have a special education teacher or a resource teacher be the contact point and make that a goal to have your son work through. And especially if they're blaming him for this, then that's an acknowledgement it's a deficit. I don't consider it blame, but you can go ahead and take that and then turn it into something positive by saying, well, let's help him, be independent. And let's help guide him, but we're going to need to prime the pump, and we're going to need to have a goal, and we're going to need to have services so that we can sit there and track that success and that understanding and that generalization of that concept. You see, that's how I would spin that to increase the services in the IEP, to acknowledge other areas of educational deficit. Or educational performance deficit, which is communication, academics, social, emotional development. All right. Now that takes us to the second part of your question, where they want to put him in a general ed math class, but they said if they do that, then he's probably not going to be able to keep his IEP. I don't know where that's written, because the law specifically says that if your child's progressing year to year, that doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that your child doesn't require specialized instruction and your child doesn't require an IEP. So I don't know who told you that, but this person just may be ignorant of what the law says about that, and if your child is only qualifying as a math learning disability, but that's your child's favorite subject and your child is doing well there, then I'm not understanding why it would put him at risk of losing his IEP. And what I would be curious about is if your child is receiving services in other areas. Now, I'm talking about that social emotional development because if I remember correctly, that was one of those areas that he was getting services for when I was involved. Now, the other one is what other areas of academics? I mean, how's your son doing with regards to comprehension and reading, written expression, things of that nature? How is your child doing with regards to their language skills? And I'm talking about social communication as well, being that your child has ASD. And ASD would naturally have some of those deficits in there. See, they could service your son in these other areas as well. So where if they feel like math is the only area they're servicing for him for right now, then I have a feeling that they're not looking at him globally and serving in all areas of educational performance deficit. But you should always be striving toward general education involvement and general education track. And, perhaps you need to talk to us to have us sort of give your IEP a once over. Especially since I know your child, and I can sit there and tell you whether or not your current IEP is a steamy pile of crap. Because if it is, then, I can tell you how to go back and get it expanded so that you're not at risk of losing it because of some stupid, he's doing so well in math. That's not a standard. It's not a standard. Okay. That's it.